Public Radio this morning that some of the recall efforts for recalling Republican senators are they have almost enough signatures, and that the recall elections could happen as early as July. If these recall efforts go forward that quickly, do you think that might make some of the senators change their minds about how to vote on these things?
It's hard for me to know how they're going to change their mind, because if they didn't change their mind after they received tens of thousands of letters telling them that they were wrong, I don't know what's going to convince them in the future. I've been in the legislature for 28 years, and my approach as a legislator has always been to find middle ground, to try to seek compromise, to try to remove the sharp edges of conflict and create the round edges, the circle of common ground. And I've always seen the legislature get near the edge and reason pulls it back. This didn't happen this time. It is indicative of what's going on around this country. It seems as though our moral compass has been broken and we've got to find a way to get it back on track. I think the resistance in Wisconsin is helping tell the story of how people have to begin to take a stand and begin to fight back, to get the government back to a point of reason. For those who say, I got many emails, and for those who say the election was on November 3rd, get over it. Understand that an election is about winners and losers. Governing is about making everybody winners. And that when you have the election, those of us who are fortunate enough to receive the confidence of the people of our districts and of the state of Wisconsin should be humbled enough to know that we have an obligation to represent the will of the people, not just the work of those who voted for us. We get a mandate to govern, not a mandate to get our way, regardless of the pain that it causes to others. And that's been overlooked here in this debate. And this is about people wanting to have government officials finding that middle ground and that common ground, that northern Wisconsin way, that Wisconsin way. Who else has got it? Yes, sir.
I got two things here, but kind of talking to just what you're talking about, election. And this is probably the most frustrating thing, is I don't care who you're hearing it from, whether it be a politician, radio, television, newspaper. The public, it's extremely difficult to get a straight, honest information, because everybody half-truths, misinformation, out-and-out lies for their agenda. And that is the most frustrating thing. I literally turned off the television. The only thing that I have found that's relatively unbiased, or at least they talk to both sides of the issues, is Wisconsin Public Radio. And that is...
It bothers me as a public official who believes that people are entitled to straight talk. I would rather tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And there are many people in this room that have not been happy with me in some of the manner in which I have got people on my side who I have told that we need to recognize the real practical challenges we have as legislators. We don't represent ideology or an extreme. We can't get our way all the time. And obviously that's part of the political lingo. Here's the public overwhelmingly in that last election, and more so today, wants us to get things done. They don't like gridlock. They don't like it when you have people fighting each other. The people I blame the most are the citizens who have failed to be as engaged as they should have been. They don't vote often enough, but more importantly, they don't stay involved often enough. That has changed. And I'm going to do my part to engage in these public forums as often as possible, whenever, wherever and whenever. Because we need to have this conversation. I need to be held accountable for what I do. You all need to be held accountable as individual citizens, to do your civic duty, to hold us accountable, to continue to write your letters, to continue to show up at meetings until we are back on track, and then thereafter continue to do it, because this isn't my government, it's your government. And it isn't my government the way I see the world, it is the government that is best for all people. Doesn't mean everybody gets their way. Remember, I was seeking a compromise with the governor. I didn't want my way. I wanted to solve his problem, and I wanted to protect collective bargaining. Senator Cullen and I had a proposal to do that. And I think the average person, when they see that proposal, will say, what was wrong with that? I'll read you. I did this last night too. I couldn't find it after I said I was going to. I want to read you a quote from, this is a quote from Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald, the day after the Senate the legislature took action. With rare candor, Republican Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald told Fox News that President Obama would face the tougher task winning Wisconsin than he did in 2008 because of the anti-union effort. If we win this battle, and the money is not there under the auspices of the unions, certainly what you're going to find is President Obama is going to have a much more difficult time. He was finally being candid. We were candid when we left the state. We were condemned for leaving the state. We should be thanked for telling the truth. He should be held in contempt for telling people, making excuses and being a fraud on what the real goal was here, and that was to defeat Barack Obama next year. The public, there are plenty of problems in this state right now. The public wants us to address those problems. The election will take care of itself just fine. Let's quit doing everything in a political way in which people look more like bullies than leaders. And so I agree with you. I think that this issue at the very least gave people their voice back, and they're expressing it loud and clear. My office received 8 to 1, tens of thousands, not 10,000, probably 20,000 emails. And it was 8 to 1 in opposition to this proposal. The public opinion polls show 2/3 to 1/3 support for collective bargaining, opposition. 76% of the people polled in America knew what was going on in Wisconsin and didn't like it. Imagine that. They knew what was going on and didn't like it. They want us to govern. They don't like gridlock. They're right. My commitment, my career, and my promise is to continue to work for that. But there are going to have to be some changes on both sides. You can't do it just one way. Yes, sir.
Do you think collective bargaining will go away?
Well, in some places it does not, because there are still contracts that are in place. Many municipalities and school districts have signed contracts in which the teachers are paying more for pension and for health care benefits. For those that don't have contracts, it's gone for all practical purposes, because they have to get 51% of all the members. They can only bargain. Now, it's an insult to say that there's bargaining when the law says you can get the cost of living. If you got more than that, there'd be a referendum. Who's going to offer more than the cost of living? They'll just say, they'll send them a letter. So there's no bargaining left. And so, for all practical purposes, for those communities that don't have bargaining, you're going to find that teachers are going to be fired because they cost more than a younger teacher who costs less. The argument that the governor and others have been using is, we need to have flexibility to make sure we're hiring the best teacher. There's some of these older teachers that aren't so good. Baloney. They want to fire the people who cost the most. My wife reminded me this morning that it was 15 or 20 years ago. Teachers were encouraged to get master's degrees. They were told, you have to take those continuing education credits because it's important to improve the quality of education. The more that you are able to take these courses, you can become mentors. And they're going to be the first ones who lose their jobs. Some of the best teachers will lose their jobs simply because they have some gray hair. And that's the shame of it. And then our students are going to lose. Then our community is going to lose.